going on, guys? Welcome back to the Rant and Review Pro Wrestling. We are talking today about the demise of AEW Rampage, and more so a look back at AEW Rampage, the second broadcast TV show from All Elite Wrestling that aired for a couple of years. And now that it is completely over with, of course, with the big moves happening in the wrestling world next year, with both AEW and WWE now moving to streaming services for a large chunk of their broadcasting. AEW will be heading to Max. Dynamite and Collision will still be around, and there's rumors of another show possibly, but Rampage was not continued. And, you know, nobody, I think, is really surprised by this. Rampage started off as a vehicle for CM Punk, as also Collision also started off as a vehicle for CM Punk. And I do think that there is a benefit for them to get rid of Rampage. That's one reason in itself. I think the more distance AEW has between itself and CM Punk and vice versa, the better for both parties. Rampage is definitely a holdover from that time frame where we remember the first Rampage and that large crowd and all of that stuff that seems like it was yesterday, but also seems like it was a long time ago. Over the course of time, Collision was another issue for Rampage. Once they got the Collision show and got 2 hours on Saturdays, then anything that was happening on Rampage was kind of a moot point. We were moving to Saturdays for anything. So Rampage essentially wound up being a show for mid-card and undercard guys. Occasionally you might get an angle on there, but there really wasn't much there. And Collision eventually wound up being kind of the same thing, where there are a few angles on Collision today, but again, it's kind of decidedly the B show. And essentially what Rampage wound up being is AEW's version of the old WCW Power Hour, which was on at the same time in the same network family, Friday nights, late at night, about 30 some odd years ago. And the Power Hour, I remember, was a show that I watched just because it was wrestling and I was a kid, but I also remember that nothing ever really happened on it, and that's kind of the same thing with Rampage. Could Rampage have been salvaged? I don't think so. I think 3 shows in itself is too much time for All Elite Wrestling, and they've kind of shown that they're struggling to book the two-hour shows that they have. Having a third show was really difficult, and it almost kind of wound up becoming Dark and Elevation, which were the original shows that got canceled, the first 2 shows of AEW's that got canceled. And again, this goes to the overall problem that, we all know that AEW has tried a lot of things. They have a lot of wrestlers, and it just does seem to be a problem with them not being able to make enough compelling television for the 5 hours they had before. Now that they're back down to 4 hours and they're on Max, we'll see what happens with that. One of the cool things about them going to Max, though, is because it's on streaming, people can watch it at any time. So if you don't really want to watch Dynamite at Wednesday at 8 o'clock, or you're not really around on Saturday night to watch Collision, you can watch Collision the next day. You can watch it anytime you want. Theoretically, that's what I'm assuming is happening with the Max deal. But that being said, I'm not going to miss Rampage. I have fond memories, like most AEW fans have and most pro wrestling fans have, of those first couple of weeks when it was this exciting show on a Friday night. It was the most exciting hour of television on wrestling on television, and it was for about a couple of months. But Moxley being the one to shut it down, I think, is kind of appropriate. I don't know about the part about them shutting off all the lights in Hammerstein Ballroom, because all you wound up with was watching a TV show where you could barely see anything. It's like, basically, it wound up like a very, very old Ring of Honor show. That's what it looked like at the end of it all. And with the lights out and Mox going into the truck and telling them to cut the show, and that's it. That's how Rampage ends. In the annals of history, or pro wrestling history, I should say, where is Rampage going to rank up? Rampage, I think ultimately 5 years down the road, is going to be remembered as, oh yeah, that was that show that AEW did on Fridays that nobody watched. I think that's probably going to be its legacy, unfortunately. A show that had a lot of potential, but you had a good lead-in. SmackDown is from 8 to 10 on another wrestling channel, and you could have really tried to, you should have gotten some of that audience, and they weren't getting any of it. And there's holes in AEW's game. We all know that. And that was one of the bigger ones. But am I sad? No. I think it might be for the better, and just focus their efforts on making Dynamite and Collision as exciting as they possibly can, and not have to worry about this third hour of television to fill in. Plus, I also think it makes the tapings, because they do tapings on some weeks on Dynamite and Collision. Sometimes it's just Dynamite. Those TV tapings can be very, very long. I've been to a couple of them where they go on for like 5 hours, and there's no energy, and that translates onto the screen. And you have, at that time, that's when the half-empty arenas were visible for AEW. Now it's kind of it's getting better now, but it's been a more frequent occurrence just on the regular shows. But I remember the old Rampage shows, and you'd see they'd film it in the same arena they shot Dynamite in, but you could tell like half the audience had left. And especially if you're filming on the East Coast, by that point in time, it's like really late at night, people got to go to work, so most of the crowd is left at that point. I think that in the old days you could have gotten away with stuff like that, but in the modern wrestling landscape, I think doing those kind of shows is not really helpful for AEW, and I don't think the show overall, at the end of the day, I don't think it was very helpful. But that's what I think. I want to know what you guys think. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. What is the legacy of AEW Rampage? How did you like the ending of the show, the way it was written off and deleted from AEW's current slot of programming? And are you looking forward to seeing what they're going to do when they move to Max next week? Same week that WWE's moving to Netflix. Netflix is already showing me the Raw promos up already. I haven't watched Monday Night Raw because I haven't had USA Network in a long time, but I have Netflix, so I guess I'll be watching Raw again. And I've got, I just subscribed to HBO, or just Max now, so I'll be watching Dynamite and Collision on there, which is good for me, because for me, as a person, I had Sling TV. Sling was like $40 a month just for me to get TBS and TNT, because I'm a cord cutter. I don't have cable. I haven't had cable in like 15 years. I usually watch everything on the internet, and I personally, for me, I like Max having AEW Dynamite and Collision and only having to pay like a fourth of what I was paying for Sling. And since I already have Netflix, because I'm watching Squid Games right now, Squid Game season 2, by the way, you gotta check it out. I'm enjoying watching WWE there. But let me know what you guys think about that. What's your experience? Are you going to be getting Max to watch Dynamite and Collision and I guess the delayed or discounted pay-per-views? Do you have Netflix? Are you going to be watching Raw and WWE's programming on Netflix? Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. And until next time, I'll see you guys as we finish up 2024. We got the best and worst of the year video coming up. And of course, later today, we have our review of the final pay-per-view from the major companies from AEW this year, which is AEW's World's End pay-per-view. So until then, see you guys later. Have a good day.